Three Holodomors in Ukraine. Causes, course, consequences. Ukraine suffered three major Holodomors in the 20th century. Each had its own characteristics, but all were linked to Soviet policies. 1. The Holodomor of 1921 to 1923. Causes: World War I, the 1917 Revolution, and the Civil War led to economic chaos. The war communism policy involved forced grain requisition. The 1921 drought affected southern Ukraine, Kherson, Zaporizhzhia, Odessa, Mykolaiv regions. Grain was exported to Russia to support the Red Army and industrial centers. Course: mass starvation began in the summer of 1921. Peasants were forced to eat substitutes like tree bark and dead animals. Cases of cannibalism were recorded. Western countries offered aid, and assistance from the American Red Cross helped reduce the number of victims. Consequences: estimates suggest between 500,000 and 1.5 million people died. The Soviet government concealed the scale of the tragedy. 2. The Holodomor of 1932 to 1933, recognized as genocide. Causes: forced collectivization. Peasants were forced into collective farms, and grain was confiscated. Soviet grain procurement policies imposed unrealistic quotas. The Law of 5 Ears of Grain, August 7, 1932, punished people with execution or imprisonment for taking even a few grains. OGPU and Cheka operations. Villages were blockaded, food was confiscated, and travel outside the affected areas was prohibited. Soviet propaganda denied the existence of famine. Course: the peak of starvation occurred in the winter of 1932 to 1933. People ate dogs, cats, rodents, clay, leaves, and even resorted to cannibalism. The worst-hit regions were Poltava, Kiev, Kharkiv, Chernihiv, and Dnipropetrovsk. Consequences: between 4 and 7 million Ukrainians died. Traditional rural culture was destroyed. Ukrainian villages were demoralized, making it easier for the Soviet government to exert control. In 2006, the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine officially recognized the Holodomor of 1932 to 1933 as genocide. 3. The Holodomor of 1946 to 1947. Causes: World War II exhausted Soviet resources, yet the government continued to seize food supplies. The poor harvest of 1946 due to drought. Forced reparations by the USSR to socialist bloc countries, including Poland and Czechoslovakia. Export of Ukrainian grain to other Soviet regions. Course: even seed grain was confiscated from peasants. People fled to cities, but the food rationing system did not prevent starvation. Mass deaths, cases of cannibalism, and epidemics occurred. Consequences: about 1 million people died. Demographic losses and weakening of Ukrainian rural communities. The Soviet government concealed the tragedy, attributing it solely to war consequences. Overall consequences of the three Holodomors. 1. Massive loss of Ukrainian population. Total losses exceeded 8 million. 2. Destruction of traditional peasant life. 3. Depopulation of Ukrainian territories and their resettlement by people from Russia. 4. Psychological fear of authorities, passed down through generations. 5. Attempts to destroy Ukrainian national identity through repression and the suppression of historical memory. The Holodomors in Ukraine were not just the result of natural disasters, but a deliberate policy by the Soviet government to destroy Ukrainians as a nation.